Hello. In this video, we're going to do an introduction to function notation. Now, we're not going to define a function yet. All I'm going to tell you is that a function is a special type of relationship. And I will tell you at this point that all linear relationships are functions. So linear relationships are a special type of relationship called a function that a lot of people in mathematics are interested in studying. And in fact, mathematicians throughout the ages have been studying functions for a long time. But it was in 1748 when a mathematician named Euler wrote something really important in his textbook. And what he wrote was y equals f at x. And so what he did was he came up with a new way to write y. So this new notation here is said f at x, sometimes said f of x. And so what he did in a stroke is he's actually given a name to the relationship, or the function, called f, and he's talking about the f at an independent value, so an independent variable. So let's take a look at what we mean by this new notation. So we have a line over here, and from this, if we see the y-intercept is 1, we have a slope of 1 over 2. So that means we can write y equals 1/2 x plus 1. So now here's the neat thing. All we do for function notation is instead of writing y, we write f at x. So that means I could actually write this relationship as f at x equals 1 over 2x plus 1. We're communicating something really important to the person looking at this relationship. We're saying to the person reading this that 1 over 2x plus 1 is in fact a function. Now, you might say, okay, well, you told me that all linear relationships are functions, so why do we have to do this? It's important to recognize that what I'm showing you is a really basic introduction. You will get into more advanced relationships where you're not sure if it's a function or not. And one of the things that's nice to be able to do is to communicate that you know it's a function, or if someone's giving you something, they might want to communicate that it's a function. So what does this do for us? The first thing to point out is that the x in here actually represents the independent variable. And when we're working with this notation, what we do is if we replace this x in here with something, we replace the x on the other side. So if I'm interested in f at, say, 2, so I say 1 over 2, and now wherever there's an x, I put a 2 plus 1. So that gives me 1 plus 1, which equals 2. So what this means is that at x equals 2, y is equal to 2. And so we can say this, that's how we would have said it before, but what we can write now is we can say f at 2 equals 2. And so if we look at the graph here, we see that this would be the point 2, 2. So my next question to you is, okay, well, what is f at negative 2? Well, now what I can do is I have a couple options. One is I could do this algebraically. So I know that the function f is 1 over 2x plus 1. So I could say f at negative 2 is equal to 1 over 2 times negative 2 plus 1. I simply replace the x with negative 2, which equals 0. So what that means is that at x equals negative 2, the y of the graph is 0, and we can confirm that on the graph. So the second way to do this is to actually, you can pull these values right off the graph. So my next question to you is, what is f at 4? So what this means is that I'm asking you, what is the value of y when x is 4? So I kind of trace my hand across here, and I go x is 4, and I come up, and I see that y is 3. So that means f at 4 is equal to 3. And we then know the point 4, 3 exists on the graph. So just to sum up, really what we want to understand right now is that a function is simply a special type of relationship. And function notation was a notation that was invented to help communicate ideas about the functions. And if we come down, we want to boil it down to one simple statement. It can be that we simply replace y with this new notation f of x. So in the past, this was my x-axis and this was my y-axis, but now I can think of this as being my x-axis, and instead of y, this is my f of x axis. Okay? In the past, we could say that points on the graph were notated x, y, but now we can say points on the graph are notated x, f of x. It's important to remember right now you're only learning a new type of notation. You're not actually learning any new concept necessarily in terms of mathematical manipulation. Okay, in the next video we'll do a couple more examples just to kind of solidify this initial notation. Good luck.